straighten my hat. I always notice things as soon as the camera starts that there's like a crooked thing, because normally when I'm just sitting here, I don't really care. What does it matter if it's like dangling from this side or that side or it's off side? You know, like, why would I care? But then I get on here and I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of goofy looking when you're on a camera, isn't it? Well, hello everybody. Actually, I got to go check on something here really quick. Make sure it's synchronizing on the other side, and then I will. Well, hello everybody. There it is. Okay, so I got that working. So we're synchronized here. So I'll get this thing going here. All right. Looks like everything is running. All right. Well, it's Saturday night for those who are watching this later on in history or whenever this might be seen. That is important because I'm going to be talking about things involving Saturday Night Fever of all things. Not really because it's cool or anything necessarily. It's an entertaining way to transition into one of these topics. But yeah, we'll be discussing things relevant to the film Saturday Night Fever because, how do I say this, guys? We really have to start looking into what Hollywood truly is. It's not really entertainment. It is and it isn't. It's doing something on a much larger scale. And okay, fine. We've all become acclimated to it as entertainment. But I need folks to really start to think of these things more in terms of timeline. I hate using the word manipulation, even though it's technically accurate, because it has always a negative connotation associated with it. So, yeah, I get it. Manipulation, it usually implies deception or lies, but there's also changing and modifying. So I guess you could say timeline reassignment, time reassignment, timeline reassignment, things involving where you're aware of a data, something that's going to happen, okay? And you have the information surrounding said event. And you wish to either warn people that it's going to happen, or, you're trying to steer the event off course potentially if it's at all possible, or you're trying to postpone it, or you're trying to minimize its impact on history. Timeline technology seems to be something that, people need to be more open to at this point in time. It exists. And beyond the timeline technology, then you need to understand why timeline technology would work based on the concept of bioplasma as human fuel. And it has a lot of different names to it. And it does appear to be something that is harvestable and collectible and containable. And I've always asked myself, how do you harvest a material like aether? But yet Wilhelm Reich did discover a method. So it's possible, it does happen. It's just really a matter of determining, where is it happening? Who's doing it? Who benefits from it? Who are the customers of said product? Is there such a thing as a customer? Yes, there is. Yet, where would you find evidence of these economies? Where would you find the portal, for example, to purchase them? Where's the website? Where's the clinic? Where's the houses, the safe houses? Where's the neighborhoods? Where's you know what I'm saying? You can't just run around going like, okay, it happens or doesn't happen. So my problem is that I started looking into things about people, and it began with research into my lineage. Okay. Before I say this, guys, let me explain something to you. All right. I really still to this day just don't have a clue who amongst my extended family know about the Nazism and who doesn't. Don't know. And I'm open to the fact that, well, let me put it this way. I'm open to the possibility that facts are nearly impossible to determine definitively based on the parameters of the programs these people have been involved in until these things have been declassified in a more meaningful way, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. And even if it could happen, the thing that I've learned for the last year or two is that I've been given quite a bit of this information, even at times where I personally was in only half belief of it. And people would tell it to me. and I would be given it, from the sidelines and said, I would appreciate it if you had passed this along to your audience. And I'd be kind of like, sometimes I feel like, well, I don't mind passing that along to my audience, provided I tell them that this is not from, quote, me. So again, there's times where I was doing material about a year or two ago relevant to these topics where I was trying to explain to this audience that I'm giving you information from the family, some of the bloodlines. There's people that are within those groups that got hip to what was going on, and they do know about these things, and they're wanting their secrecy. They don't want to be known. They don't want to be part of what I'm doing, yet they do want people to know the truth to a limited degree. Yeah, they wish it was easy enough to say, here you go. And here's the thing. They gave it all to me pretty much according to them. They said, here it is. But I promise you, you can tell it to everybody and they're still not going to believe you. What you're going to wind up doing is becoming the scapegoat for our information. So we're happy to have you do that, but we're aware that it's going to effectively amount to you sort of absorbing, and us being able to deflect things onto you. So it doesn't really benefit you, even if you want to tell people. So it's just one of those stupid things that I went ahead and did anyways, like a year or two ago. And I wouldn't say it was stupid, actually. I'm glad I did, because I kind of have a pretty good track record now of revealing these things now that they're becoming more, I guess you could say, promoted and brought into the light. And what I mean to say is things involving like plasma transfer from a well person into a person. Well, here's the problem, guys. Now they're discussing it in terms of like, hey, it works so well on these COVID trials that we really think that we should be doing this in a broader scale. No, you really shouldn't. Just because you're able to make a person feel better from a plasma transfer process doesn't mean you should begin like starting to popularize this as an ideology or as a thing. Why? It's really not a healthy thing overall, folks, to be consuming blood or plasma from another human being. It really is a life-saving measure. It's a thing that a person should only go through, in my opinion, for life-saving measures. Things that involve absolutely, which is to say you arrive at a hospital, you could potentially, die if you don't get a transfusion of blood. This, I think we all would agree, is not vampirism. Can we all be reasonable here? Okay. So I don't take it to such a ridiculous extreme where I say there's never a time where it's possible. I say that would be a time where, based on your personal principles and your values and what you perceive as reality and what is physical versus non-physical, that's in your personal opinion, how you would want to handle that. I would understand people that would object to transfusions is all I'm saying. Their ideologies religiously, I would understand them. Okay. I get it, guys. We've been trained in our society nowadays to say that anybody who would take a position like that is, quote, insane. There was a time where I think I kind of agreed with it. It was kind of popularized, for example, in series like ER. It means emergency room, those unfamiliar. It's a different moniker, I believe, over in Europe. I think they call them A&Es over there. Here we call them ERs, but it's the same concept, an emergency room, a place where you go, the ambulance delivers you an emergency. And in those places where you have a transfusion, of a blood in those, types of facilities or whatever, I think most people agree in an emergency circumstance where you go into the hospital and it happens that way, that's probably not a bad thing. And no one in their right mind would run around saying you're a vampire for having done that. All right. It's different. It is absolutely different when you, as a functional, healthy, reasonably healthy person, or as a person who can go from being slightly unhealthy or unwell to being healthy just through a simple change of your diet, exercise, or just doing better things or whatever. But you make the selection to go, something, I think I'm just going to go the easy route. And I wonder if there's any like people out there that are, I don't know, like a 12-year-old that has really, really healthy blood that may want to transfer it to this adult body. Really, guys, this is becoming normalized. And it's bothersome to me because they keep warming people up to this idea that it's not that creepy. It's like, no, you guys, you have this really weird concept. Like there's this bag of blood and it's just being transferred from a tube of a 12-year-old over to some adult. It's not that bad. Okay, fine. I get it, guys. They always do things to clean up the procedures and make them more socially acceptable. So in this case, I would argue, not argue, but I've learned that no, they don't just go tube to tube, like some little kid is strapped into some chair going, oh, well, maybe they do in some cases. I don't know, but that's not how it's advertised. But you never know, guys. Some of these people may be doing literally that in some limited circumstances. I would not be surprised. But again, I'm trying to speak more surface level. What is known? What are they actually selling? Let's not get too conspiratorial or theoretic or what somebody said in this case. Let's just talk about what is it exactly that they're talking about on the surface. Okay. So on the surface, this process involves, I guess, removing the plasma platelets from the blood. And then once that separable layer of platelets is removed, they have a way of taking that fluid of sorts of the plasma platelets that's been removed from the blood and then transfusing that over to a person. Okay. All right. Thank you, Lisa. Welcome. Yeah, I appreciate that. So so that process is what clinics like Ambrosia Plasma, or rather the service, excuse me. I think what Ambrosia Plasma is Jesse Karmazin's business. That was one iteration of trying to popularize this. I've done some stories on this in the past, guys. I'm not trying to beat an old drum or whatever. Because I wasn't really trying to do tonight to talk about Ambrosia or Jesse Karmazin or any of those companies or whatever. It's just simply to say that there just seems to be this push lately. I'm concerned that COVID seems to be amongst many other types of like doorways in to push a lot of agendas that normally we would never, ever be okay with. This health one seems to be of that variety. That's all I'm saying, guys. Like they're trying to do these health passports to say that, well, if you haven't got this very questionable vaccine, you may or may not be able to go to movie theaters in different states and different countries and different. It's like, what? Seriously? All I got to say, folks, is that that's the way it's going to be. Then as many sane states that are possible right now, all cluster together to create, zones of whatever. Call them freedom zones. I don't care, But we got to end this madness quickly because these people are just trying to shut down our economy. Honestly, I'm not sure that that's the answer, guys. I'm not sure that we should acquiesce to that degree. I'm not trying to get too political here, but I have a feeling that this is where they're going to be trying to do. And in a way, what I just said may be a bad suggestion, because what the opposition will wind up doing is trying to create something to where like all of Oregon, California, and Washington become some big, restrictive COVID zone, which would be tragic as hell, ladies and gentlemen. I beg you, let's not let these monsters just take everything away from us while they sit there and go like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's all sound science. Oh. It's like the guys are so disingenuous. I mean, why is anybody letting them continue this? Their agenda is not American. Just wake up to that reality, folks. Just going to get on to the next topic. Well, not next topic, but back to the original one. That is connected, though, because what I'm telling you guys, it seems like the places that have the most severe shutdowns right now and lockdowns are the places where I think that the reasons why this is all connected, where that problem is the worst. Few would argue that Washington, Oregon, and California and Nevada are probably amongst the worst human trafficking zones anywhere in the United States. I do believe they're listed in the worst. Obviously, Nevada, it's considered pretty normal. I don't think people hardly blink an eye at human trafficking. That's been my experience. It's bizarre how comfortable people in Nevada are with it. It's really, this is what I'm concerned about, folks, but more and more as time goes on, is the normalization factor, the slow conditioning that they're doing through mass resonance manipulation events. Every time they're distracting us with these events of riots that mostly, folks, you're going to learn, guys, I hate to break it to you, but you really are going to learn that many of these things that have happened lately were top-down staged events, from dirty cops right down to dirty people in the streets. So none of these people were innocent, but you're all going to be out there fighting on their behalf. And that's what makes me sad. There's going to be people that are on the more conservative, back the blue side, who are going to be fighting probably for a person who was either a fake cop or a dirty cop or just a plant there for whatever reason. And there's going to be all these people that are going to be on the BLM and social activist side and things like that. They're going to be fighting on behalf of a fake character that probably didn't even get shot or stabbed or killed the way that they said they did in the story. It was just a big thing that was put out there to get everybody doing exactly what they're doing. And then what happens after all the aftermath of these disasters? Okay, well, are you any happier? No. Did you get your justice? Not really in the end. Nobody really walks away from these things feeling happy or satisfied or justified or right about their position. You notice that? Every single one of these things are really designed to rug sweep your heart. They're designed to basically make you feel like you can never get justice no matter which way you turn, and just trying to reinforce the idea, a state of injustice as a state of normalization. And no, folks, because while they keep trying to just constantly bombard us with these events, just fake, 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 the fake becomes real. And then we're all out there actually genuinely upset about things and genuinely arguing about things. And few can argue about that, right? This is the essence of mass resonance manipulation and structural psychology. And folks, really right now, especially, they're doing this with the plasma aspect of it is huge. This is why I know I said I was going to talk about Hollywood. It's a cool topic tonight, folks. I promise you it is. And I'm going to get deeper into this, but who's hiding what and for what reasons? Okay. A lot of the groups that are, how do I say this, folks? Why does crime exist? Why does trafficking exist, especially human trafficking? Why does human exploitation exist the way it does? Why do we have a false monetary system to begin with? And how are all these things connected to Hollywood? And how are they connected to the way we perceive reality? And who is really managing our perceptions? Now, today, especially, I was really thinking about this a lot, about the number that it got to the point now where I just started realizing that if I don't share a few cases that I'm more aware of about people that seem to have the ability to disappear and come back, that are either the same person and they should be like over 100 years old, or they're just from the same bloodlines, or they look strikingly like a Nazi family bloodline, and they're in the Hollywood community. And then it occurred to me also that this is pretty common there, and that this whole idea of age reversal and of this psychotronic generators, plasma collection, this is all consistent with the Vril and the Thules, and they are the occult, societies that existed prior to the Nazis forming. Okay, and so these were people that understood Vril as a human energy, as an extractable and harvestable resource. And then they knew everything about what it took to literally take a group of these Vril, knew exactly how, using occulted methods that have existed for hundreds of years, to remove your energy from you, to literally back then, to make you go from, say you're like a couple 100 pounds, like, at the beginning of the year. They knew, even going back a few 100 years ago, how to do so many sophisticated things to sap your energy from you, that in ways that are psychoenergetic, that yes, involve trauma and stress, but also other factors. Okay. And chemical entrainment, alchemy, the bioenergetic hacks that are now, when you integrate that ancient knowledge that has existed for hundreds of years with technology and the ability to replicate chemicals, the ability to replicate the technology that are scalar technologies, things that can target people based on their DNA and that literally shake their DNA out of resonance. It's pretty trippy, the things that are being done right now. And we don't have enough global treaties really to address these things, folks, because bioenergetics has a lot of ability to heal and to create a sense of wellness and partnership globally in ways that are very organic and not forced and not pushed upon and not MK Ultra or anything else like that. It's simply that when you study energetics, and the more that you get involved within energetics, you begin to see the balance. Yin and yang makes total sense to you. You're just like, oh, I get it. Oh, yeah, I do understand how this displaces that. And if I remove something from here, I fill up something over there. If I fill up something over there, I create a gap over here. I mean, that's good and bad. What it really translates to is that energy doesn't die. It's just constantly displacing from one place to another. It's always just relocating. Energy is just going boom, boom. It's just moving from one place to a next, even when it's moving through you, even when it stays static within your light body for many, many of your perceivable years, what you think of as a timeline. So, really, my face is frozen, huh? Seriously, is it still frozen? Hmm. If it's still frozen, let me know and I'll try to take care of it. So, but all right. So on a perceivable timeline, so I can do things to fix that. But anyways, all right. So all right. Let's it's still frozen, huh? All right. Hmm. Let me think here. All right, stop cam, start cam. Is that better? How about that? I'll try that, and then I'll try something. Okay, cool. All right, good. I guess that's all I had to do was stop and start the cam. All right, I'll learn that going forward. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the tip. All right. So perceivable timelines. Oh crap! I totally lost my train of thought now. Dag nabbit. I hate when that happens. See, this is one of the reasons why I didn't want to stop, because I figured even if I fixed the problem, it would jam my ability to get back on track. All right. Because I was getting a little bit off topic from where I originally started. So, all right, let me think here. Perceivable timelines. I know I was getting the timelines for some strange reason, even though this is really about, I want to really talk about the ability for a person to basically like extend their life using bioplasma. So let's just go into the topic. If I'm way off from where I started, just tell me and I'll try to get back on. But all right. So I've done some material both publicly as well as in my YouTube, like live presentations about this topic before. But I haven't really discussed it in great detail. I've gotten tips like left and right, and I've heard people on the internet say things about this. And this has been one of the most consistent things that I've gotten information on, but I was in a personal state of disbelief until I just had too many informations smack me in the face, I guess you could say, that are just like way too obvious. It was just literally cold splash of water, buckets of ice, kind of like information where I was kind of like, yeah, that's hard to deny. And I'd say, hang on. So probably one of the most obvious is, and I'll get this on the screen, was the William H. Macy and Dan DeRio one. And those familiar, if you've ever seen, not a lot of people have seen The Burglar because it's a Jane Mansfield movie, but and it's not one of her more well-known ones, but I personally thought it was quite good. Oh, weird. Oh my God. I swear I'm not mirroring this, but it's a little weird. It's almost like I'm also in the safe. Ooh. Hang on. Maybe I can mimic this scene. Here we go, guys. I'm mirroring. Anyways, did you like that? Hang on. Is it more effective if I do this? Wait. How about this? I was trying to mimic this scene a little bit. All right. Coincidentally, there's and I can show you a picture of it. There's a headstone connected to my family that's over 100 years old. That's in Merrill, Oregon, and the Odd Fellow, which is of the Independent Order of Odd Fellows, and Rebecca, a society that my mother, her mother, her mother's mother, and I'm pretty sure her father was in also, although I don't think she yeah, they had to have, because if they were both going, if she was in it as a kid, then her parents were in it. So yeah, then James would have definitely been an odd fellow. I have no doubt. It's just I don't remember her explicitly telling me, yes, in fact, James was an odd fellow, but she told me that she was a Rebecca and she went to the Rebecca Lodges. And then once I went out to Merrill, Oregon, where my grandmother, Martha Catherine Hatfield Pettigrew, was buried, I observed that, yeah, they that one of the relatives inside the headstone went by the moniker William H. So I thought that was interesting, because it's weird, because I wouldn't say there's a lot of William Macy's out there, and I don't think that I ever heard of another in Hollywood. So I've always often asked myself, why do these Hollywood actors sometimes unnecessarily add in their middle initial when it just makes the credits longer? Is it to be creative? Is it because there really was another William Macy in Hollywood and he had to distinguish himself by saying he's William H. Macy? I don't know. I don't think so. William H. Macy, M-H-M. You have to take the last, if he's an odd fellow, you take the last letter of the name, William M-H, so M-H, Macy, M-H-M. Well, what does that form? Forms the word mayhem. That's relevant. May and ham, mayhem. Ham bands, ham radio, ham frequencies. A lot of what these people learned, they called them amateur radio frequencies. They also call them ham bands. A lot of what they learned about frequency manipulation, space-time manipulation, was relevant to ham radio frequencies and ham bands. So I have no doubt that the people that understood a lot of these things, they reference ham both forward and backward within timelines. And this is the thing that I'm becoming more hip to. The weirder things that are in Hollywood, the weirder names, the weirder corruptions, they're not always rooted in purely things like money laundering or clever puns to do, like if an artist wants to be a singer, or rather score their own film, but take credit under a different name. One of my favorite filmmakers, for example, is named Hal Hartley, but he scores his films under the name Ned Rifle. I mean, his name isn't Ned, his last name ain't Rifle, but for some strange reason, he when he makes his films, they're scored by Ned Rifle. I don't know. You tell me why. I never really looked that up, why he does it, but that's just the name that he picked for his scores. So what I'm saying, though, is that sometimes these names were designed to drop information for other reasons. So I've kind of already told people about how the more malevolent forms of it. So in some cases, like in modern times, they're using these things simply just to communicate things about, illicit markets, drug trafficking, child trafficking, things of that nature. Okay. But before all that, there was another method that it was used for. And yes, guys, defense departments, intelligence services, they were really borrowing from methods of secret communication that were just adopted from old school techniques that the secret handshake clubs did. It's really, like Little Rascals had their He-Man Woman Haters Club, the high sign. Okay. Right. That's just like a really primitive way of communicating what these other secret societies were doing within the realm of the Little Rascals and our gang. It's just like a way of saying, or like the Little Orphan Annie decoder ring. Again, a way of saying, like, well, when you're in our secret club, we have a way that we communicate. And if you get that Ovaltine ring, then you crack open the ring and the kids would get it, inside the Ovaltine. This is long, long time ago. It's like a Cracker Jack prize. If you're familiar with Cracker Jacks now, those who still eat that. Does anybody eat Cracker Jacks still? Or is that like a thing still? I don't know. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'm sure they still have it at ballparks or whatever. But yeah, like the decoder rings would be like you open it up and it did very simple numerology. It would be like A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. And then they would just shuffle some things around. So maybe, maybe by every third letter, they might say like A equals 3 and B equals 4 and C equals 5. You see what I'm saying? Instead of their natural placement. It would be a way of like, twisting things up a little bit, and you're in the secret club. So if somebody wrote out a whole sentence with these letters or these numbers, then you just had to get your secret decoder ring and you could decrypt the letter. Sorry, guys. I mean, I'm not trying to be too 101 for those of you who have a more sophisticated whatever and everything like that. I'm not, and again, I'm not trying to be oversimplifying it or over complicating it for anybody either. It's just trying to give it, put it in some more simpler context so it doesn't just seem like I'm going like, ooh, spooky this. It's like, no, guys, these are pretty simple things that when you think about it, it's the most, it's been in front of us for so long. It's just my way of kind of saying, like, you understand it. It's always been in front of us. So let's just kind of review entertainment a little bit more critically to say, well, maybe the reason why some of these scripts are so bizarre and nonlinear and have these strange lines, or the products, the way they line up things, or the reason why that driver's license was placed inside that a screenshot really fast, or if like a letter goes on the screen, like a character looks down and there's an address on the envelope that makes no difference to the plot. They never reference it later, but for some strange reason, the person that shot, was the set designer or the costume designer, however that works. Whoever decides what's written on that envelope when it's seen on camera, they just select some random generic address, and sometimes it does have greater significance. And this is the thing that I keep learning over and over again, is that they did this many, many times in many films where it wasn't done for no reason. It was done with very specific intent. It's because they were, in fact, using this timeline manipulation technology. And once you personally believe that it's working, where would you get your evidence that it was? You would have to have ways of saying, okay, let's just put this in context, folks. Let's say they learned, let's say a time machine is invented today, right now, and you knew that everything that was going to happen today was going to happen, and you wanted to make sure that we all knew in advance who was responsible for it, how they went about doing it. And you knew there would be almost no way for you to tell people about this because they would go, get the fuck out of here. Timelines? You had a time machine. Yeah. Oh, so you dropped clues in movies to tell us. Sure. Well, yeah, guys, I was pretty cynical about it, but now I'm pretty sold on it as a thing, that it's happened and that it's not simply for predictive programming. Yet, think this through a little bit. If you accept what I just told you, just change timelines to when you think the machine's going to get invented. Then keep in mind they can go back to any time. Does it change anything? Say you disagree with me on when timeline manipulation is going to be invented. What does it change? I guess what changes is there somebody ahead in time that's going to look back on these events now and think it's important enough to warn us? Or should we just live through it? Should we just evolve out of it independently? I don't know. I think that there's probably people on both sides, but obviously there'd be some people who would get access to it and go, how do we make things exponentially worse for that group of people over there? Now, I've accepted this as a thing and that it's existed for decades. Then once I came to that realization, I also had to figure that, well, certainly foreign governments at least have one government out there beyond us who thought of this, found it, located it, learned how it worked, or has replicated it in some way and would be using it equally. So what you would have existing in what I think now, folks, is that we've reached an apex within the technology evolution where, yeah, it's happening. Yes, it's hidden. It's not really happening kind of completely out in the open, yet it is happening in the open because we're all dealing with the effects of it. The reason everything's so weird right now, if you think about it, is all of our time is now in a chessboard type environment where it's relatively static. There's only so many. I mean, look, they know because they're looking at it from a certain place, right? They know that the chess pieces are stationed in a certain location. We're not starting with a fresh one from the beginning. It's not a brand new game. And so they're always looking at a snapshot of where it is. And then it's just a matter of, can you influence player one versus player two to make a choice to move their rook, their knight, their king, their queen, whatever, their pawn in one direction versus the other. And that would be the collective consciousness. That would be the media. That would be, what can you do within the realm of the media? Think about it. The media will be the most powerful weapon once you understand timeline manipulation. Yes, anybody who began the media understands it, and then by now they understand what they're sitting on power-wise, the ones that are the real creators. It's that the reason why they go to such great lengths right now to make things appear as if they're winning when they're not is because they are banking on that being the perception when it's reviewed in the future. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Why would decent people let this be like let it fly through? Why would they allow everything that's going on right now is obviously in opposition to what the vast majority of our population want. Nobody wants this. Not even the people that are creating a lot of the problems right now in the streets really want it. I would say even amongst the majority of those, they're not even opportunists. They're just people that got genuinely whooped up into, hey, that guy's doing it, she's doing it. Well, if I don't, my friends think that I don't care. Or my friends will think I'm a supremacist, or I'll look like I'm a person that's into white privilege, or I'll look like it's like there's all these things that are going on right now that are driving people's decisions into going out there and doing the wrong thing. Okay. Because they're basing it off of information that's designed to get all the people arguing over dirty cops and criminals equally, guys. They're all criminals. The dirty cops are criminals, and so are the people that are doing this. And you know what they're doing? The media is all like, they've always been the advertising wing of the traffickers and the dirty cops and the dirty law enforcement, the dirty intelligence services equally. The cartels and the gangs are managed by dirty law enforcement. This is what I've been trying to explain to people, you guys. Once you figure this out, that informants are really just the gangs that are managed by the FBI and the CIA. See, you become an informant, you're allowed to run business on American soil. Think about it. Watch The Departed by Martin Scorsese. Way, way closer to how it works. It's still deception, though, because it's deception because I think they give you the idea that more people in the FBI have that kind of significance and power than they do, when in all actuality, the people in the FBI are in as much of a movie as the people that, like us, we're all kind of in a movie. We're all in their movie. They're creating it for us to perceive reality one way. Even some people in these gangs and cartels think that their boss was El Chapo when he never really existed like they think he did. Was the gang that he created a badass one that really did bad things to people? Sure, yes. And I'm not going to tell you that those aren't bad, that those aren't people to be, to be reckoned with or whatever. I'm explaining to you though that even amongst those people, like it's really what you're doing is you're taking your orders from the man. Hate to break it to you. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. I'm saying that that's really what it is. And you're being managed by the people that you allege to never, like, I would never be around a pig. Well, you work for them. So you're just working for the ones that have agreed that this is how our system works, and they're just going to manage the crime instead of do something about it. Because guess what, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, the technology exists to catch all of you criminals, okay? They have it. They can use it. There's not a single thing that you could get away with nowadays. I'm sorry. There just isn't. I know it. You can't fart without a person's smartphone detecting it a mile away and being able to triangulate where you did it. And knowing based on the relationships between your phone and other person's phone. Sorry to use such a crude example. I'm trying to be a little bit humorous, but there's some truth to that, guys. So when I tell you that you can track nearly anything, then why do we lose tens of thousands of people, including children? Doesn't make a lot of sense. It tells you that things are happening willfully. And then once you understand that, then you sort of get that, where the problems are, guys. Like I was looking into the human trafficking hotline. I'm realizing the whole thing's hacked. That, it's basically a backdoored phone number where the traffickers are managing it along with the corrupt members of the law enforcement at the FBI level. And then you got this nonprofit agency that's filled with people that have encoded names that are all just going like, we're doing something. Again, do I think people who work there are bad? No. I bet you 90% of the people that show up there, honestly, were like, I want to do something good and help find missing people. So I'm so proud that I work at Polaris. They probably believe it, and they make money and everything, and they go into work assuming that they're doing something. And what I'm saying is that I think that exists to some degree within the FBI, to a significant degree. I think that they're just as much in a Hollywood perception film as a lot of the rest of us are relative to the news cycle. I think some of them genuinely believe that they were assigned to go haul in El Chapo. And I would ask those officers that were in that photo with that fake El Chapo, do you really believe that your superiors would let you be the ones that let your faces be seen walking next to a major drug kingpin? Why would they do that to you? Why would they trot you out and have your faces on there being seen next to him, knowing that this guy is allegedly this big, dangerous person? Because they know it's not true, you guys. Like when they make errors in judgment like that, you know it's because it's all for the show. You know that it's all to create a perception for you, and even perhaps for some of the people inside the agency. They all feel good. High five, we caught him. Did you? No. Sorry, you didn't. You really didn't. And the problem is actually could end. I mean, really, guys, if you're really trying to eliminate that problem, it could end. So are you trying to eliminate it? No, they're not. They're managing it. They're not trying to end the cocaine trade. They're managing the cocaine trade. I don't necessarily disagree with that as the ideology. I'm not into cocaine and I don't want to use it and I wouldn't take it. I'm telling you that if some people out there want to, I don't really care. That's their business. I'd kind of prefer that most people not, because I have to be honest with you. Anytime I've been around people that did quite a bit of coke, they were pretty arrogant, they were pretty selfish, and they're not very nice people to be around. And you'll find that they really only like to be around people that are like them doing what they're doing. And when you're not one of them, you're on the other team. It's just like, boo, whatever you are, it's something different than they are. And they know it right away. And they just immediately want you out of their environment. And you usually want to be out of their environment too. So it's like, touche, no problem. Fine. Anyways. But the point is that I don't really care about those things. All right. And I'm not here trying to do some expose on that or anything like that. This is more about the plasma form of it and what we all perceive as reality. Why is our reality management so severe this way? Where does this all tie into like the plasma thing like I was talking about earlier? Because it is relevant. It's because, folks, what we really need to start waking up to is that it started with a cluster of, I'd say, maybe like a few thousand, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 of the imports from the Nazi Party that came into America. But we have to remember, American Nazis existed in the 30s, okay? You may not know this, but we had many American Nazis that were every bit as loyal and as enthusiastic about making the whole world a big Nazi playground. And there was enough popularity of Nazism in America to fill Madison Square Garden with 20,000 Americans who were all there to support Hitler and the Nazis. This is not me trying to normalize it to you. I'm explaining to you the reality in America that we have all neglected to remember and don't properly contextualize, and it's costing us right now dearly. If you do not understand this, if you do not understand that these elements are still here, they still want that Reich. They still want the master race. You just don't really know what that master race is if you still think it amounts to an Aryan man with big, tall, features, blonde hair, and blue eyes. It doesn't have to do with that. Not really. Yeah, they like those Nordic genes. Yes, it's part of one group of master genetics they want. They want all master genetics. That means that they want every race. They love to go, look over there. They've been doing it since the beginning. They've been tricking you all into this whole Aryan as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tall Norwegian guy model since the get-go, even though it was led by, like a shorter, dark-haired, dark-eyed guy with a little mustache. Telling you that it's a master race that's blonde-haired and blue-eyed, really? No, they don't even believe that. Trust me on this one. That's deception. And the point is that I'm finding more and more things to suggest that, like what you see here with Dan Doria and William Macy, again, you may agree or disagree with me on whether or not they look alike, but I would suggest that you watch Dan Doria in The Burglar, 1957, starring Jane Mansfield. If I can find a link to it where it's free, or I can show you a scene from it in here that you may find compelling, then I'll do that. I get copyright struck though, so I don't know what falls into public domain yet or not. I'm not sure how that works relative to 1957. I'd have to look deeper into that. Anyways, what was compelling though about this was the fact that I've noticed that they tend to do this. They will mirror a scene of theirs when they're consciously admitting that they've done this. They'll mirror themselves. It's a strange thing that they do. I don't know it's got to be intentional. It's got to be something ritualistic. But so Dan Doria does a scene where he steals from a safe, and the shot is done by placing the camera in the safe and pointing it with Dan Doria reaching in and taking the money. Then, as William H. Macy, if my information is correct, these people are either father, son, or they're the same person. Based on the closer I look, and the more I look at this bridge here in the mouth and the tooth line, and I follow his method of speech closely in The Burglar, the more I'm convinced personally, again, never 100%, but I'm really of the opinion that Dan Doria and William H. Macy are the same person. If they're not the same person, then my secondary guess would be that they're very closely related and it's just not publicly known. The fact that I have a William H. gravestone connected to my own family in Merrill, Oregon, I think is relevant because of my research. And I really can't expand on that much more. And I'm sorry. I can only go so far with how much I can discuss. It's not that big a deal. It's just that there's some lines that if I cross them excessively, then I start getting into that trouble category that I don't want to get into too much. But I would talk about it privately with people. And then let's see here. So there's this example, right? So again, I look it up. It's called The Burglar. It's 1957, starring Dan Doria and Jane Mansfield. And I would say it's a good quality movie. And she in particular, Jane Mansfield, is outstanding in it. She's very, very good in a dramatic role. She's especially towards the end of the movie where she's just going through this range of expressions while at this show where they're having a horse do like the diving competition thing where it dives into the pool of water. But she's not there really to watch the show. She's just there like as waiting for something to happen. And she's very, very worried and concerned. And you see her just cycle through all these different emotions. She was a very talented actress. The fact that she mostly played airheads throughout her career, to me, is kind of tragic when I saw like how good she was in a dramatic role playing somebody that was like streetwise and super intelligent. Like she was streetwise and super intelligent. She played dumb on camera, both for interviews and on her films, because that's what was popular at the time. But she was far from dumb. She had a 3-digit IQ and she spoke many different languages, is my understanding. So towards the end too, she got into the Church of Satan and Anton LaVey. They tend to get in some of that intellectual class in Hollywood sometimes. And then it wasn't long after she got in with that crowd that she had that car accident where it nearly took off her head. So, all right. All right. So, hang on here. So then I was looking into some other things, trying to think. Oh yeah. Okay. So Schaefer. Oops. All right, so that's the director Eric Schaefer, and again, he's not working too much nowadays, but he was kind of popular in the '90s, and this guy on the right is the Nazi SS scientist Benzinger. And to me, these guys look more than a little bit alike. They look pretty much close to the same person, especially when you kind of look at how similar the hairlines are, how far up it goes. You know, I don't know. It looks to me they're pretty close to the same person. Again, I guess it's a little bit of a different one, you know, back in when he was Benzinger, you know. But if you think about it, he looked a lot younger in the photo that's in black and white over on the right. And so then if he is using some degree of like bioplasma or life extension, assuming that's what it was, if it's the same guy, then yeah, I mean, it's just going to slow down the aging process radically. And he's just going to kind of stay static in the same kind of age. So they would have to have a way to sort of like blend him in and out of varying things, you know, to make that a reality. If you think about it, how do they cycle you in and out of reality? You know, if you never die, it's eventually somebody's going to know you're 100 or 200 years old at some point in time, and they're going to go, "Why are you still around? Why do you still, you know, shouldn't you be in the Guinness Book of World Records?" And these people don't want that. They want people to keep thinking that that they're aging, and then they go away someplace. And so, how would they go about doing that? So I found this case. So again, you know, if you want to, you can take a closer look at their features. That's Nazi scientist Benzinger on the right, Eric Schaefer on the left. And he was more of a New York film director. And again, guys, I got no problems with Eric Schaefer. He made some pretty, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of his work, but I don't have an issue with the guy. And that's been the same thing I found with most of these actors. I like William H. Macy's work. Eric Schaefer, I didn't feel one way or the other. The next one I'll show you, Liev Schreiber. I've shown you that one before. You know, again, I was a fan of Liev Schreiber. I just usually thought he had pretty decent movies, you know. So not a huge fan, but Schaefer, Schreiber. Isn't it weird that they both have SCH names? I guess that's probably not a coincidence. So again, it's another, by the way, I get these black and white photos here. I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and make sure I know I'm quoting this properly, but I'm pretty sure I got both this one and that other photo from AnnieJacobson.com. If not, I'm not sure where I got them. And those unfamiliar, she's written some books. I haven't read any of them, but I know that she's a good resource for things involving Paperclip and things like Area 51, if you're into those types of topics, and CIA projects. She covers a lot of range of topics. I don't know what people's opinion on her is overall or anything like that, but when I was trying to remember where I got some of these slides of the Nazi SS from, I couldn't remember where I got all of them. And then I went on to Annie Jacobson's site one time and found like a whole big mural of them. So I'm thinking that that's probably the source of quite a few of them, from including mine, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's hers though. So yeah, if you're looking for more information on that, that might be a good resource. And then so there's Walter Schreiber. And then when you compare, especially around the lip, bridge of the nose, you see, it's a unique lip line, and they both have it. Whether Liev is a relative or he is in fact Walter, there's no doubt that, especially when you get around there, just objectively review it, take out the eyes. There's more to the Schreiber one that I can't get into, but that one also has a connection to things that touch close to my story, and I just can't talk. Again, it's just one of those things where I'm like, my hands are tied on certain ones on these ones because I just can't discuss it in greater detail. I can only go to a certain point, and then I have to I can't cross that line. And then the ones that more recently were really starting to get more and more obvious to me, because I'd had this thing about Ruth Gordon. Those unfamiliar with Ruth Gordon, she was more popular in, I don't know, back in the 70s and 70s and 80s. Hang on here. I did some comparisons between a young Ruth Gordon and another actress that was in Saturday Night Fever. So that's a good thing to transition into now, because those unfamiliar, Saturday Night Fever, I'm sure most of you know what it is. If you don't know what Saturday Night Fever is, I'd be really surprised, but just in case, I'll put it up here, Saturday Night Fever. All right. I need to get the browser up anyways. So Saturday Night Fever is, well, you can kind of see the trailer running back here. And I guess it's not going to. But anyways, if you look at the cast, it says it stars John Travolta, Karen Lynn Gorney, and Barry Miller, and a bunch of other people. So this is the person that I'm speaking of right here. What really got me thinking about this was I was watching Saturday Night Fever, and I kept on thinking about, honestly, guys, I couldn't let go of the idea that all the dancing scenes that involve John Travolta and this actress did not look at all natural to me. It was, it was really weird. It was like, I don't know. It was, how do I put it? She didn't move as like quickly and as swiftly as the actress that, like, there's like another actress in the movie. I can't remember who she's played by. I'd have to look it up on the script, but there's another actress in the movie that he keeps rejecting as his dance partner. And, he keeps saying like, yeah, I'm not interested in you. And, yeah, we danced that one time, but I'm not, what was her name? Donna. Yeah. This actress. So Annette. So this actress is the one that he basically inside Saturday Night Fever. He's always like going, nah, I'm not interested in you, everything like that. And he winds up choosing Karen Lynn Gorney as his dance partner instead. So this is where it gets trippy, guys. So this is what I'm asking you to do. Take a look at. So Ruth Gordon, she passed away August 28th, 1985 at the age of 88. Okay, she died 88, master number 88. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not telling you that she was one. I'm telling you that Nazis use the number 88 when they do their things. 88's one of their numbers because 8 equals H, HH equals Heil Hitler. Now, that doesn't mean that Ruth Gordon was doing that. It just means to say that I had a strong suspicion that even though I'm a big fan of her work typically as a kid, I also learned that she had another side to her. She did do some pretty occulted things. She was in Rosemary's Baby. If you're familiar, guys, Rosemary's Baby is the film that was, oh, well, look at the way they restructured the plot line here. Yeah. That's not exactly the plot. It's desirous of starting a family, the young Catholic housewife Rosemary Woodhouse and her struggling actor husband Guy move into the Bramford, New York's iconic building that brims with unpleasant stories of obscure dwellers and ghastly occurrences. Before long, the young couple is befriended by their somehow eccentric next door neighbors Roman and Minnie Castevet, and shortly after, and that's Ruth Gordon. She's Minnie. Rosemary gets pregnant. However, little by little, as the inexperienced mother becomes systematically cut off from her circle and friends, alarmingly, hints of a sinister and well-planned conspiracy begin to emerge, enfolding timid Rosemary in a shroud of suspicion and mental agony. In the end, why is everyone so conveniently eager to help with Rosemary's Baby? Okay. Spoilers, folks, those unfamiliar with the plot line. And again, don't listen if you've never seen it, but it's basically that they trick Rosemary, they drug her, and they basically, she's assaulted, sexually assaulted while she's in this like dream state by Satan, and she has a vivid memory of it. And then the baby that she's carrying through the rest of the film is the spawn of Satan, effectively. Ruth Gordon is like the human, like, leader of this satanic cult that is constantly like tricking her into ingesting all these chemicals and putting things in her body. They're effectively trying to get her body to die off and for the spawn of Satan to take over, and then whatever. So all these people, they could care less about Rosemary. They're interested in her, what she's going to produce as the spawn of Satan. Pretty iconic role. And again, guys, I'm not telling you that Ruth Gordon's a bad person just because she played a really effective evil character in the movie or anything like that. I have my own reasons for having some weirdness going on within the realms of Ruth Gordon. It's kind of connected to some of my stories about Roseanne Barr, and that's about as close as I can get to that topic, guys. There's just some strange things that are going on with some of these people that were in Hollywood going back, especially to the 70s and 80s, that are all kind of connected, and they have connections to people that are close to my family. I was told, like, I mean, literally, guys, my parents watched Roseanne Barr. I mean, like, on television. It was like a big part of our upbringing to watch that show. It was a big part of my upbringing to be into Ruth Gordon films. I was taken to the theater to see them sometimes. I remember seeing the movie My Bodyguard, starring Christopher Makepeace and Adam Baldwin and Matt Dillon, about a kid that gets bullied in school, and Ruth Gordon plays his grandmother. And that's where I got really familiar with her dancing. If you watch My Bodyguard in particular, she's always flirting with men in the bar and getting really drunk. Her character is pretty funny, actually. She's just like the flirtatious grandmother of the kid who's the main character in the movie. And she's always kind of going like, "So what are you doing there? You want to just have a drink with me? Oh, wow. It's just, you got big, strong muscles. You know, you got a lot of energy in you. Why don't you come over and sit with me?" You know, she's always like doing that at the bar and everything. She's funny. I mean, again, guys, there's a lot of things I don't really like talking about these things, but I would be lying to you if I didn't show them to you, or not lying, but I would feel weird if I didn't at least kind of say, I feel like something like this is going on, and how do I explain it respectfully without, you know, going too deep into conspiracy land, okay? Because I know there's technology and innovations that can basically reverse aging. So I was thinking, how would that manifest, and who would show the signs of it? Well, I think what wound up happening was sometime, at some point in time, perhaps Ruth Gordon and Karen Lynn Gorney began to sort of merge into the same person. And so it would be just basically a way for her to continue appearing on camera as Ruth Gordon using technology. And then as she went into being younger, using plasma, bioplasma, and resonant frequencies combined with plasma, then the camera technology would make her look like Ruth Gordon on film. So she could keep making movies with that select pool of actors that are, quote, in the network, that all work together, that are part of these bloodlines that make movies in the studios together. Then it'll just be like known that, well, she was in the last 4 or 5 years of her career. She was only doing, you know, certain projects, and, you know, only appeared on the set for briefly, that kind of thing. You see where I'm going with this, guys? Because Karen Lynn Gorney started doing soap operas in the 70s off and on, like little bit parts here and there. So one person can become the other, can become the other. It's a little bit, you transition using face masking. So how would that look today? Today we know, because it exists as technology. How would you pull this off today? Well, let's say that you could do face masking, and it's existed a long time, guys, way long time. All right. But you would start off by going, all right, in 2010, the same person, Ruth Gordon, will continue making movies as Ruth Gordon while she undergoes the plasma process. Okay, she'll still use CGI face masking to play Ruth Gordon. Then once the plasma process has made her Karen Lynn Gorney, she then, again, guys, I don't know. There's Karen Lynn Gorney still alive, so I'm not trying to say this definitively happened or anything like that. But they would make her into Karen Lynn Gorney, okay, and then she could use the face masking to continue being in movies with the network of actors that all do this and all know what this exists and everything, because there's a bunch of them. Then they all just agree to keep the secret. When she shows up as on the set as Karen Lynn Gorney, she's output on camera that you see as Ruth Gordon. As far as you're concerned, Ruth Gordon is still alive as Ruth Gordon because she's still appearing in movies. Now, one timeline does not have to definitively cross with the next. They don't just immediately kill off Ruth Gordon, then voila, Karen Gorney exists. No, they slowly transition from one into the next. I thought this was potentially a thing with the more I watched Saturday Night Fever. I watched it a couple of times and I just kept on going. I got to be honest with you, Annette, played by the other actress, just seems like a better dancer as she does. I mean, she moved the flow of her is smoother. She had all of her dance moves were just better. I'm not trying to be dismissive or anything like that, or say that Karen Lynn Gorney isn't whatever. It's just that Donna Pescow, she had better moves. She had a more fluid movement. She moved more like a woman that's the same age as John Travolta. But then when I saw Karen Lynn Gorney dancing next to John Travolta, I really felt like John Travolta was in his 20s or pretty close to like 20 years old. And I felt like Karen Lynn Gorney was a woman that was a lot more like Ruth Gordon's age, kind of just like, getting used to her body. Like, hey, look at the way I move around. I'm Ruth Gordon dancing. That's what it felt like. I felt like when she's inside the studio with John Travolta, I was really watching Ruth Gordon. I could almost hear her voice in the voice of Karen Lynn Gorney. And guys, I've just become really adept at locating these things in more subtle situations that it wasn't involving very famous people, to know that this is something that does in fact happen. So I'm sure they've done it with at least a couple famous people, because they've done it with ones that aren't famous. Okay? I know that. All right. So that's the Saturday Night Fever thing. So let me show you the side-by-side comparisons now that I kind of gave you the background on the movie. I can't really show clips, but I'll just say, like, watch Saturday Night Fever on your own. Look at clips involving, the dance scene involving John Travolta in the studio. Anything involving John Travolta in the studio. In fact, I could probably get away with if I just put it up in the corner of the screen. Let's do that really quick, because Saturday Fever. It's our studio. Her stance, her posture, she has Ruth Gordon's posture. She's not I'm sorry. Nothing about her stance or her posture feels like a woman in her early 20s. That's all. So maybe she's just a lady that was in her 20s and just was, older than her time or something like that. I don't know. But the whole time I watched the movie, and I watched it a couple of times looking for this, not necessarily looking for it, but just with like a raised eyebrow going, something does feel off resonance about this. It doesn't feel quite right. Anyways. So I kind of did some side-by-side comparisons of like old Ruth Gordon compared to Karen Lynn Gorney, both, as she got older and, with the one, always the same photo of Ruth Gordon when she was younger, just trying to do as much of a like for like comparison where you could see like the way the nose kind of bridges up like this. The way the nose goes, especially, you can see it. The eyebrows go pretty far over. That's her with John Travolta. And that she not only has a very similar essence to Ruth Gordon, but it's Gordon, Gorney, and so you got, Gordon. I'm going, I mean, again, not always, guys. One doesn't always equate to the other, but Gordon, Gorney, Gordon, Gorney, they both are Gore. So if it was one thing, if it was, only the name, no, I wouldn't think it. If it was just that she kind of dances like Ruth Gordon in the movie, no, I wouldn't have thought it. If it was just that the way that her accent is in Saturday Night Fever is a lot like the way that kind of like, Ruth Gordon has this way that she kind of talks, it's more than just like New York. It's just like she's got this way that I don't care what her character's doing or where she's from. She'll always come at you like this. You know what I'm saying? She's got that way of talking. It's part of what makes her so funny, you guys. Like one thing that I like was, her in the Clint Eastwood movies, Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can. I mean, those are great movies where that's the best of what Ruth Gordon does. She just sits there and like curses out, like always trying to make the men feel guilty. It's like, oh, go on, why don't you leave a poor old lady here by herself while your stupid ape eats up all my Oreo cookies? Where are you, you smelly, stinking ape? Because the movies have Clyde the orangutan in it, and so he's always getting angry at her and saying, "She's not an ape, Ma. He's not an ape, Ma. He's an orangutan." They're just great movies. So I recommend them, actually. I kind of prefer Any Which Way You Can to the sequel over the first one, but I don't know. Maybe I need to go back and watch the other one more. And anyways, yeah. Yeah, I know there was a bunch of things going on with the rights to the music in Saturday Night Fever that may contribute to the awkwardness, guys. But I mean, I think it's more than that. There's a speech pattern that Ruth Gordon has that's very Karen Lynn Gorney-esque too. Again, maybe they're mother and daughter, maybe they're cousins, maybe I don't know. I mean, it could be something as simple as that. They could just have a genetic strain that's common that they don't know about. And that's what makes them have similar speech patterns and looks and things like that. There's sometimes natural doppelgangers and there's other forms of it. But I just wanted to bring this one to your attention a little bit because it's more just about to do with the transfer of bioplasma to create the illusion, that the person has, combined with technology. So the person can keep their timeline going. They can basically pretend to die by aging using the technology and only making movies within the network for the last decade of their career. And then during that time frame, they begin undergoing the aging reversal process so they can basically come back into Hollywood, the same person, but looking different. I think the thing is with William H. Macy and the Dan Daria dynamic, if my information is accurate or my whatever you want to say it is accurate, I think what went on with him is just that he looks a lot more like his original self than probably some of the other people tend to do when they do the age reversal. It's just, to me, super obvious. There's a way that William H. Macy's face has this thing. like here, that it does. That's very distinct. That his face is, and Dan Deria's got the exact same thing. And again, that would be so consistent because these people have hinted over and over again using his movies. He used to do a lot of Westerns, McClintock. He was in McTaggart, all these different types of Westerns that I've seen them use as ciphers for other characters' names or to be fake politicians or to do things like cover up for certain. It's frustrating, guys. Like if I could tell you all the things that were connected to it openly, it would be one thing. And I really don't like to leave too many things out, but it gets to be a mess if I start explaining this one in too much detail, except that I have more than this reason alone to think that this is a thing. There's the psychotronic generators. There's technology that can actually extract somebody's plasma. And so once you know that people are doing that now and normalizing it and putting it out into companies to make somebody else feel well or feel younger or look better, well, don't you understand, guys, that if that's happening now and they're normalizing it aggressively to us now, then they have some variation on it that's exponentially better they use for themselves. And what do you think that is? It's probably something that makes somebody who's like Ruth Gordon look like Karen Lynn Gorney. To where, you know, she goes from looking like she's 88 years old to looking like she's back into her 30s and 40s. But you see how it's not a clean process. If she did it, I have to be honest with you. If Karen Lynn Gorney was in her 20s when she made Saturday Night Fever, she is the least moving like a 20-year-old woman I have ever seen in my entire life. The entire time I watched the movie, I never once genuinely felt like I was watching a woman that was in her 20s. It always felt to me like this lady has to be elderly because she's speaking that way. She's talking that way. Like, and then all of her things are just the way that she's talking to them. It's like, you can see how funny this must have been if she wasn't looking that way. I don't know if that was the case or not, if she had already done the transfer over or not. Because that could have been one of the iconic films that she did to sort of break out and make her like a huge actress, right? No, the process is complete. No longer Ruth Gordon. Now she's Karen Lynn Gorney. Again, I don't know what started what was the technology evolution, what was masking versus, you know, which one she's doing under that. But my guess is that there reached some point in time in the 70s, mid 70s, early 70s to, you know, in that time frame where she started to transition from being Ruth Gordon into being Karen Lynn Gorney. And these were the earlier innovations of the camera technology that could do face masking, face swap, and optic masking to change a person to look from one thing to another. And the reason why I think this is true, guys, is only because of my own family's intense interest in anchoring Ruth Gordon to me. It was weird. Again, like when they did it, it's there's certain music and certain actors and actresses that most people in the general population today don't find that culturally significant or memorable. But in my family, they were like gods. And that's all I'm telling you. Like, you know, Ruth Gordon was one of them. Okay. Now, John Travolta, yeah, he's still really popular. But I'm telling you, within my small universe or whatever as a kid, John Travolta was an entertainment god to this family. Like, we had to see everything with that man, right up to that crappy sequel called Staying Alive. Seriously. I remember going to the movie theater and everything like that. And there's two double features, actually, I still remember. And the one that was there, they saw Staying Alive, and the movie Class starring Rob Lowe and Andrew McCarthy was the double feature that was playing after it. And then none of us wanted to see that movie. So my sister and my mother went and saw Staying Alive. And then my dad, my brother, and I went and saw Easy Money with Rodney Dangerfield. Came out the same time. What makes this all even weirder is today I'm watching a movie, and the movie within the movie, I always look out for this. If there's characters that are driving down the road, like in a major town, and there's movie theaters on the side, while I'm watching an 80s movie, I'm always curious to see what were the 80s movies playing in the 80s movie. Because, you know, like if they drive by a movie theater, it might say, like, if the movie was filmed in 1985, you know, there'd be a whole bunch of the movies that were released in 1985 or 1984 when the movie was being filmed. And then you would get to see them as the characters drive by on the billboard screen. And for some strange reason, that always winds up being like relevant to these types of things. I don't know why, guys. It's just something really bizarre with the way that timeline manipulation works. Things that are involving spirals, especially celluloid film. Once you start to study these things, you're going to learn it's that coil, it's that spiral that makes these synchronicities happen, especially because film and celluloid and music all operate on a timed synchronistic pattern that taps heavily into the fabric of life that's numerically represented into what we perceive as energy. I don't know what just happened there, guys. I barely tapped on something and it dumped me out of the studio. But yeah, so sorry about that, guys. Like I was saying, I got dumped out very briefly. I apologize. But yeah, so how we all perceive timelines, though, basically, okay. And the spiral. I've been talking about this more and more. I was trying to mention yesterday that, you know, like the movie Thank God It's Friday is another disco movie. These things are all operating on this Adorno's like components of recognition thing. And again, the music is synchronized to certain patterns that get your brain kind of going. I mean, there's no doubt, guys. How could you deny that everything by the Bee Gees is memorable? You can't not sing a Bee Gees song. I do it all the time, you know. And but yeah, these what they've learned to do though within Hollywood is tap into that same pattern, that same Fibonacci sequence. So if you really study it and you think about the timeline as the spiral within the Fibonacci pattern, and then you just look at the grid of the 1 by 1, 3, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, 5 by 5, 8 by 8, 13 by 13, 21 by 21, 34 by 34, 55 by 55, and just keep going. Now, always remember that if you're at this point on a graph on the spiral, go 180 degrees angle. So, you know, start whatever angle you want to go at, whether it's north to south. I think there is something, though, about timelines relative to the 33-degree angle. So maybe perhaps that's what we're dealing with here is when you're at the center of the Fibonacci spiral, when you go in two different points, you can literally line up things and predict timelines if you know one event relative to another. You know, what goes up must come down. An event that happens here on the Fibonacci sequence winds up being an event that looks like something as an opposite. They've learned something like this. That's all I know, guys. I don't have all the answers on that one, but that's the timeline aspect of it. And it's represented in nature. And what I was kind of given as a tip off is that it's my information, if you look deeper into it, where you can line up the Altai pyramid in Russia. And if you go where it points, it's that here. This is all tapping into this concept involving this Altai pyramid that I have, where when you go, if you assume that the circumference of the Earth is 10,800 nautical miles, right? And here it is. So there's this one. So what I'm trying to explain to people is when you look at this chart right here, when you go from one point to the other, from the Altai pyramid in Russia to Lake Mead, there's an inverse. So this Lake Mead right here, there's a mountain that's 5,400 miles, 5,400 nautical miles away, like right here on this chart here. Where this line originates is the Altai pyramid, and it looks nearly identical, and I'll show you that. Yeah, see this? Hang on really quick, guys. Got some haters trolling. We get ourselves some noise here. All right, so this right here is the Altai pyramid rock wall, and that's in Russia. And so what I'm suggesting to you is that there's inverses that occur at precise places in different parts around the world. So if you see a pyramid here and you go 25% the circumference around the world, that pyramid has an inverse that becomes a lake. There's something to this that they've discovered in nature with DNA and people and everything is what I'm really getting down to here. So this thing with plasma and age reversal, it's really just kind of tapping into something about the way we perceive timelines and the way we perceive plasma cycles, really. I know it sounds a little bit strange, but keep in mind, guys, that you're really kind of dealing with something that's an ancient concept that quite a few people have talked about historically, that a very limited percentage of the world has access to. You've heard this before: timeline extension or life extension technologies. How can some people live, exponentially longer than others? Well, what I'm saying is that Hollywood really became the modern form of hiding this, because as newspapers and travel, and you just can't hide from things anymore, right? They knew that at some point the information era was going to make it nearly impossible for the people who do this and are going to do it and have done it to maintain their privacy and to maintain, whatever. All I can tell you guys is that I got tips from the sidelines from people that have effectively said that it's a thing, that they don't deny it, that there's two different schools of thoughts that are kind of predominant at the moment, as far as those who've done this and are kind of hiding or don't really tell everybody. Some are kind of just telling you to your face that they've done it. They're really not hiding it that much. They do things like what William H. Macy did in that movie because they kind of want out of the program that they're in. They're in some type of program where their actions and their they're controlled. They're involved with timeline things where they're not really allowed to do things too far outside of the script of their daily whatever, because of what they got involved in. And that's part of why some of these secret societies exist, is for that exact reason. It's simply because they're engaged in the process of doing things with timelines. And that if you have one person that starts to F up and do something different, it's like you're completely changing the fabric of something that they've been working on establishing and maintaining and stabilizing over a long course of time. And so this has become sort of the nature of, like, quote, those secret societies that we won't talk about, is that a lot of times they apply blame to them when it's really just that there's just different groups that are involved with what I would call timeline manipulation, and who's moving the chess pieces in which direction, that's all, Yeah, Lisa, the movie stars have access to something the rest of us don't. And that's true. That's the thing I'm saying. Like it's some I can tell you are doing good things and are involved with defense projects of a benevolent nature that do know that we're trying. I would argue that there's certain elements. I couldn't tell you for certain, but I got more positive signs from like the movie Source Code than I got negative. Within the film Source Code, I really felt like somebody was kind of saying, dude, you've got it. Now you have to start to train your brain to create positive outcomes. You need to train your brain and train others if it's possible. Not train them, but like, the things that you've learned about how to defeat the mechanics of negative energy. I like using the term that Yuvarov has popularized in his book. The mechanics of negative energy, once you understand it and the different forms of it, you can then train your body, you can then train your brain and your mind to defeat energy systems of a negative variety. The psychoenergetic aspects of it are much easier to defeat and much easier to dance around, or at least to where they don't dominate you energetically to where you begin to create negative outcomes for an outside entity or parties who seek to move energy through you in a way that's malevolent. That's an absolute thing, folks. It's a true thing. Psychoenergetic and psychotronic weapons are a reality. They've been a reality for decades. It's just in America, we're only now starting to publicly acknowledge it. There was a story that came out today even where, again, because now we're in the Biden administration, who do you think that they're pointing the finger at over the Cuban embassy? That story's how many years old now? The Cuban embassy is a few years old now, that story. And now they're saying that they're going to blame Russia. Wow, guys. Okay. Doesn't it seem more like a CIA action to sort of like scramble a bunch of people's brains that are Americans in the Cuban embassy to start a war with Cuba or to start a conflict with Cuba? That's kind of what they did with the Northwoods documents, if you remember it. They were going to plan on doing something very similar to 9/11, hijack an airliner and run it into a major building in the Pentagon and then blame it on the Cubans. So it's strange to me that there's sonic weapons used on the Cuban embassy And after, years of review and people pretending that, sonic weapons don't exist here in America, now they're all having to talk about it, publicly. And now the narrative suddenly pushes to, must have been Russia, dirt. Yeah, all right, Biden administration, sure. Yeah, all right. Keep hanging your hat on blaming Russia for everything. Guys, they have the ability. There's no question there, but why would they? You really don't want to start electronic weapons wars with people. Trust me on this one. It's brutal. No, you don't want energetic, bioenergetic, psychoenergetic weapons. We already have them on American soil that appear to be used by a foreign entity. And I don't think that they're Russian, because let me explain something to you. The techniques that are being used do not have the signatures of their culture on it. And that's important to remember. You need to look for the signatures of a culture. You need to look for the irony. Are they interpreting our words properly? Are they interpreting, like, there's things that you'll find if you really dig into the details, who's behind this. And you're going to find heavily, guys, I'm sorry, but the whole Nazi element of it, of Nazi occultism, is a very big part of what's going on. And the way they do symbol manipulation and neurolinguistic programming, not the only group that does it. But when you combine those techniques that have been kind of mastered by them, and you combine it with more sophisticated forms of, like, esoteric black magic, is all I'm going to say. I mean, of things that are more consistent, guys, with things that are of Asian traditions. And, there's good aspects of that too. I mean, I wouldn't know half the things I know about energy flow if it weren't for Asian medicine and the things that they teach you with acupuncture and energy flow. They know everything. All right. So they know everything about energy flow relative to the human brain. And they also know everything about how can you send a signal to a person's hand, their feet, their spine, their skull, or whatever like that, to get impact a different part of their body. That's the psychoenergetics and all that other aspect of it. So yeah, there you go. See, I'm telling you, Lisa, she makes a good, like Lisa says, in the last 10 years, they all look like they spend 5 hours a day in the gym. And some of the comedians, they smoke and looked unhealthy, and then suddenly they're all healthy and buff. Yeah. I mean, again, guys, they're people that had, like, aggressively bad lifestyles. They're like ones that, like, like Keith Richards style partying and everything like that. And then you look at them and you're like, you're still alive, let alone looking younger than most people. What the hell? I mean, mind you, guys, I think a lot of these people at that level, they really have kind of figured out a secret, as far as, like, timeline extension and things like that. They really have, but I don't know. I want to make sure I got all my topics covered here. Real energy, Thule societies, age reversal, wellness. All right. I think I did actually. I've covered most of the topics. So, I mean, I'm not sure where I could go from here with it. I can keep going, folks, if you want me to, but I think I've covered most of the points. So, but yeah, as far as, like, the whole doppelganger thing goes, like, I think in nature, what I just showed you with the pyramid and the Lake Mead thing, I mean, that's a natural sort of doppelganger effect. That's where, at an exact percentage across the world, you have an inverse. So I think that exists within human DNA too. So I'm not sold 100% on what this all amounts to. Maybe they're just finding somebody's that person that's 25% around the world that was born at the same time, that was like a mirror of them, or is born 30 years later that's a mirror of them, or they must have figured something like this out, guys. I'm certain that they did. So it's worth exploring is all. And maybe Hollywood is where they keep them, I don't know. But anyways, folks, I think I've done most of what I'm going to do tonight as far as material goes. So I do appreciate you joining. Watch Saturday Night Fever. It's Saturday night. Thank God it's Friday, Saturday Night Fever. If you're interested, you want to check these things out, or just look at footage of it and see what you think. I'm kind of curious what people think. But anyways, you can contact me in the description below. Appreciate you.